turning, but I realized we needed to get our business in order before we could do this. So it took many years to get our business settled. You know, that's always the unglamorous part of any of any music venture or any artistic venture. It's nothing that they used to teach in school, but you work in the music business program now, so you know this. You know, if you don't take care of your business, somebody else is always more than willing to, and they don't always have your best interest at heart.
Right.
And I'm not saying anything about anybody in particular, and us to have control back. So we did get control back over our music and our publishing. And then a few years ago, you know, I was recording with Jason E. Smith, and, you know, at practice one night, he said to me, if you ever consider reissuing your project, PYLON, I would like to be the one who does it. Well, he didn't know what he was getting himself into, because it took a long time. 2 years ago, we started gathering all the mixed down tapes, and then he had to bake them, and you know about that, tapes from the era of the post-punk days, like 75 to 85, those tapes tend to flake off. There's just something about the way they were made. So they have to bake at a low temperature to get the magnetic material to readhere to the tapes. And then they had to be taken off. So he started gathering the catalog and restoring it. And then I started the process of looking for a label. And he has some labels interested and willing to give us that front, but you know, after discussing it with the band and meeting the New West people, we decided to go with New West. They're right here in Athens. They pressed this in Athens. You know, a lot of their nuts and bolts are done right here in Athens, and it was just very not only convenient for us, but they have a vested interest in our community. And I know they also support the music business program. And so, you know, after that process got started and we got the gears rolling on the project, then Michael was able to start working on the graphics end. And he can talk about that.
The book looks amazing, and it's you know, there's so many amazing pictures. I'm sure that took a long pile, all those. Michael, can you talk to us about how that process
Yeah, well, you know, when Brady at New West Records was saying that we would put a book in this thing, I thought he meant like a 32-page little picture book. And for something, so this has ended up being like 200 pages with, you know, hardcover, and also with a writer like brought on board, you know, to write an entire narrative of the PYLON's history. And then Vanessa and Brady and different people like reached out to a bunch of other musicians and asked them for their, you know, if they would like to send in some comments, basically what you would call testimonials, and those are littered throughout the book too. But then there's this, it's just like a reservoir of like a large amount of the visual ephemera and all kinds of photographs that haven't been seen in a long time. You know, and we were able to work with Henry Owens that had worked with New West Records on the box set. And they loved the work that he did for them. And we'd actually PYLON had already worked with Henry on releasing the PYLON Live album 3 or 4 years ago. So it was a great great working relationship, because like this was such a complicated project that there was no way that I was going to be able to do all the design and all the print files and all that. So Henry did like all the heavy lifting on this project for sure, and we had a little period at the beginning where we just established what were the main style guide components of it, you know, colors and fonts and how many different font sizes and this. And so yeah, he put together this 200-page book, and then there's the kind of completely reproducing the first two albums.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 other records that are inside there that were brand new things that we got to create new covers and inner sleeves for and all that.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of work. I mean, all of it's been a lot of work. It's the work that Vanessa's describing with Jason Neesmith and Vanessa and other people have contributed to the getting the music on for even longer. So yeah, starting last fall, the book and all the packaging has come together, and we're still working on it because there's then there was a desire for us to put out a version of this box with CDs, so then we had to go back and kind of design it again.
Yeah.
That wasn't planned initially, so that's now actually coming together. We had to add some more pages to the book, and that'll be available for pre-order now, I believe, but it won't actually be ready until February, whereas this thing's coming out with the vinyls coming out in November 6th.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think they say the CD box release date is March 26th.
Okay.
So,
Sometime
Yeah.
early next year, so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they really listen to our fans. They were demanding CDs. Some of them think the audio is better and also the compactness.
Yeah.
But they'll get the same book, but
Oh,
it will
even
have
if
the
you buy the
CDs
CD?
in the back with some
Yeah.
additional material.
Oh, wow, that's great. Yeah, because the book is.
And it'll still
Really
be in that in the box,
Yeah.
in the slipcase,
Yeah, cool. I mean, since you have the Chomp album, I mean, I always and I'm really glad that y'all recreated the serrated edge where it looks like the dinosaur has taken a chomp out of the record. I was curious about that when this first came out. I mean, that's probably not a cheap thing to manufacture, especially back then in the early '80s. So, like, how did you convince your label back then to allow you to do something
Well,
like that?
the weird thing is, it was there. I mean, somebody on their end proposed it because the postcard, that image all came from a postcard.
Yeah.
So when we were a band that was like a bunch of tourists driving around out west, we would stop at places like that. We took a bunch of pictures, not at that exact place.
That's Vernal, Utah.
Yeah, in Vernal. But we were in the area and we bought the postcards, from this park. The postcards back then, a good number of them, so that was part of the way they were printed. The edges were all wavy like that, like die cut. And so we worked out a deal with the photographer of that photo to get the rights to the photo, and then we also wanted to buy 2 or whatever thousand copies of the postcard, and the initial printing of the record had a postcard in it that we bought from him, and they were all wavy like that. And so somebody at DB Records said, this is something that we could do on the at least on the opening, to die cut it like that. So then when we needed some more postcards or something from him, and we got some more, they had gone to just straight edge.
Yeah.
So that went away during that period,
Right.
that convention.
Yeah.
But that was, luckily New West was more than happy to carry that over.
Yeah.
And it kind of creates a weird thing because it's on that one record, it comes out of the top, it's a
Right.
top loading.
Oh yeah.
So the spine is actually on the bottom, so when you
Right.
stick it in the box, it's all sideways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a mess. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, you're right. That allowed us to keep the initial design intact for this box or this reissue of this vinyl.
Yeah.
Chomp and Gyrate, this is the first time they've been redone.
Yeah.
Made
Reissued.
available again, reissued. Yeah.
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 That's
I mean, Gyrate, I think it had a second era of pressing around '88.
Right.
But of the two, Chomp's the rarer one. They didn't make any more after
Yeah.
'83.
Yeah.
But I remember being in the van, and Randy had bought these postcards through the window because the gift shop had just closed. And Michael's looking through them going, yeah. And then he got to this one, and he took the postcard and he folded it over like this, and he said, I've got the design for our record. You were like, yeah.
Yeah, we just took the image and folded it into a square, and these are on the back is the flaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, looking through the book, I mean, I was really impressed with the way that this thing looks, and all the photos are amazing, and the testimonials are great. I mean, I love the one from Corin Tucker from Sleater Kinney, and Steve Albini, you know, from Big Black, and you know, he's a famous recording engineer. His testimonial was great. But I also really loved all the pictures of the flyers from all y'all's early shows. Like, y'all played with so many of my favorite other bands, like Talking Heads and PYL and all these great bands. Can you talk a little bit about y'all's touring, like during those days, like playing with some of these bands that I'm assuming y'all like looked up to and liked, and then kind of like then growing and like opening for bigger bands like REM and U2, that you guys would do bigger tours, like maybe some of the differences between the small club level and then trying to like do those bigger shows? Like, what were some differences?
Well, you know, of course, a club like this is more intimate.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you really want to, you can look at everybody in the audience. But there's something else that also happens on a larger stage that we had to learn how to play, where there's so much space apart.
Right.
And that's when I learned to have a little kick drum put into my vocal monitor.
Yeah.
So I could stay in time with the drummer and with everybody else, because there's a little bit of you know, you've probably played a bigger place too and realized
Right.
that it's very hard to hear.
Yeah.
And if you're opening for a larger band, let's say like U2, the audience isn't there to see you.
Right.
There's a lot of get off the stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want you to. But if you're with like a band like Talking Heads or REM or B-52s, they're more on the same kind of wavelength.
Yeah.
And more appreciative of what you're trying to do. So it doesn't really come down to the size and
Yeah.
that as who you're playing with, to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because we've played for 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
And we played for, you know,
Yeah.
probably the Central Park we were ill prepared for.
Right.
That's probably the biggest show ever, and that's like 500,000 people.
Yeah.
They were like, I was looking, they're in the trees, they're like all over the place.
Yeah.
And we hadn't slept or practiced or anything. We just drove straight up.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the range has been pretty insane. Opening for the B-52s at the Dr. Pepper concert, you know, free concert in Central Park.
Yeah.
At the last minute, scheduled at the last minute. That was kind of one of our worst performances, but for the largest crowd, well, the largest crowd ever.
Yeah.
And then there was like one time when we were playing in Statesboro, Georgia.
Yeah.
And it just so happens like the new owners of the club didn't realize that when the hat party is going on, that almost every single person will go to the hat party.
The hat party is like a college party,
yeah.
kind of like what fraternities might do in this town.
Except
where it
for
has a
everybody
theme,
in Statesboro went to that party. So anyway, here's PYLON, and you know, so to speak, like we could actually put on a really good show. And we'd played at this club before for the previous owner, you know, and it was always full and always really fun. And we get there, we're on stage, and there's like maybe like 12 or 14 people in the audience. And so we're playing along. We only played like a couple songs, and it's just so awkward and so dead. And so like in between like a couple songs, I just said, Vanessa, let's just stop and like introduce ourselves to let's meet everybody in the audience.
Yeah.
And we asked everybody, like, what's your name? What's your name?
Yeah.
And they were like, we'll be here for a little while, but we're going to the hat party.
Yeah.
You know. And so we went to the hat party too.
Yeah.
Did we play at that?
No.
No, we just
But-
went to it.
But
Yeah.
when we got to play for like Talking Heads, Public Image, and all that, those are just one-off things because they were in Atlanta.
Right. Yeah.
And then just some like wonderful person involved, like, you know, happened that we got to open for them and
Right.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it was like playing for Public Image Limited. They didn't PIL didn't appreciate it, but like we were just so happy to be able to open for them at the Agora. So yeah, most of those opening for other bands were just complete one-offs.
Right.
But the only time that we really went on tour with anybody was REM on the part of their Green tour.
Yeah.
Didn't El Power play on part of that same year?
We opened for REM much later. Yeah, but
oh, that's true.
But yeah, we just played one show with them in Atlanta. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vanessa just reminded me. Yes, we did go on the road with Gang of Four, and of course they were our idols.
Yeah.
And then they became our friends. And then, you know, we weren't necessarily equals if we were opening for them, but it felt like it because we had so much fun with them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Michael got him a bottle of Rebel Yell too.
Yeah.
They'd always heard about it and
Yeah.
wanted to try it.
Yeah.
I was afraid of it myself.
And we had competitions with them on asteroids, like the old arcade style asteroids game was like in a lot of the clubs.
It's a hard game.
Well, Randy and I were fairly good at it,
Yeah.
and then I don't remember who exactly in Gang of Four were really good at it.
Yeah.
So like,
It was probably John King and Andy.
so they would sound check first because they were the headliner.
Yeah.
And while they were sound checking, Randy and I'd be over there playing asteroids, and if we got in the top 10, we could put in PYL in the console, you know. And then the opening band, like that would be us. So then we would be sound checking, and they would be over there like trying to beat us on asteroids, and then they'd put in G, O, numeral 4.
Right.
So this kind of just was like a little running battle that we had, like trying to beat them.
Who won the whole tour?
One time we, like in Ottawa, like PYL had won over them, and then later on, PYLON was like in the lobby of the Holiday Inn checking in.
Yeah.
And a Gang of Four like comes into the lobby, and I think it was Andy Gill or Hugo just screamed like, you know, they yelled like probably an obscenity and came running across the lobby and just like tackled like, you know, me and Randy on the carpet because we had beaten them.
Wow, sounds
right
like
in front of whoever.
Fierce rivalry.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, back to the box set, one of the things that I really loved about it is the Raz tape. That's that. I mean, that's a guy that lives here in Athens, Chris Rasmussen, right? That's why it's called the Raz tape, that he recorded that. But I mean, that was just done like at an early rehearsal, right? But the sound quality of it is really good for just like, I mean, was that just made on a boombox or?
No, it's a Nakamichi tape deck, which was kind of like a top of the line device, and he did it with 3 mics. There was one mic that was shared by the bass and the guitar, one over the drums, and then they put me out in the hall outside of our practice studio. Yeah. I guess to control some of the bleed. So I couldn't see them and they couldn't see me. Yeah. So they were all like, well, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. You know? You know, go into one or whatever. So I like it because it's very raw. It has some edge. Yeah. You know, I do cringe at some of my vocals because, you know.
Was it being done as kind of like a demo for the first album to get the songs down, or?
I don't remember why we did it.
I don't think we really remember having a purpose. I think it was like Chris is and was then like so, and he was just the right person to decide that he was going to invest in buying this like, you know, nice field recording, you know, portable, but high end like field recording device. And when we were working on this thing, he remembered like that he had to borrow like 1 or 2 microphones from somebody, and he couldn't remember who it was. And he's like, "Can you help me like recall like who would I have borrowed the mics from? I think it was this guy, blah blah blah." So it was Jim Hawkins.
Okay.
Who had who has had a recording studio in Athens for many years and worked in film sound and did the sound in Athens, Georgia, inside out, actually. And so I ran into Jim after that discussion, like during the pandemic. It went, you know, outdoors when we were out walking around, and I was like, Jim, does this sound familiar to you? Do you think you ever lent a microphone to Chris Rasmussen that used to work at Chapter 3 Records, you know? Well, we agreed to say that, yes, he probably did.
Yeah.
You know? So,
There was, you know, because it was a pro mic.
Yeah.
You know.
so Chris recorded this thing, and then, you know, to put this record together, we were able to, he brought in like the tape recorder itself, and Jason Thrasher took a photograph of it. It's on the cover of the record. And then we laid down like the CD and the case that it was in, and Jason photographed that, and that's on the back cover. But what's so funny to me is like, so side,
It's a cassette.
it's a cassette, yeah, it's just a regular cassette. Side 1 is this PYLON, you know, thing. Side 2 is Public Image Limited.
Like,
It's just so crazy to
Right.
me, like, you know, I'm going to record this band, and then instead of starting with a new tape, I'm just going to flip it over. I'm going to record,
Right.
you know, PIL. So
Yeah.
luckily, you know, it was all still available for it to get loaned and remastered. And I really enjoyed working on the graphics for that, because the inner sleeve is, there are no photographs of PYLON on this particular record. The inner sleeve has got photographs of him and John Underwood that worked at and owned Chapter 3 Records. And then on one side of the label of the record is just like a pretty weird picture of Chris that is on the label. I think it's really a tribute to him, because he's one of those many people that contributed to the music scene.
Yeah.
In many different ways,
Yeah.
and that's just one example.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the first time PYLON played in March, whatever it was,
Yeah.
1979.
Yeah.
It was upstairs at Chapter 3.
Right.
At their store, yeah.
Yeah, upstairs there. And you know, to be honest, I don't think I heard the whole tape until recently. Chris and Jason are buddies from like music trivia
Right.
night. I guess Little Kings, is
Yep.
that
Yeah.
where they do it? And he started talking to Chris about how he was gathering as many tapes as he could. And Chris mentioned he had this one. And at first, you know, Jason and I were talking about if he would allow us to use 3 or 4 songs, because I think Chris, maybe he was thinking at some point he was going to put it out itself as kind of like a bootleg or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But when Brady heard it, he heard it, he was, let's put this whole thing out.
Yeah.
And so we all heard it and agreed, you know.
Yeah.
I had heard one song that was on there when we were putting Chomp More together. So Randy must have heard it at some point, but I don't think I had.
Yeah.
If I had, I don't remember.
Well, can I ask you guys a little bit about the difference in your opinion between the 2 albums, Gyrate and Chomp? I mean, were y'all going for anything on trying to do anything consciously different on the second album, or was it just kind of a natural continuation? What was?
Well, I would like to hear Vanessa's take on this, but my shorthand take on this is like, when, you know, Gyrate was our first record. I mean, we had so many ideas. We
Yeah.
had so many songs. You know, we refused to even put like our first single, the tracks from our first single
Right.
on that record, because we were like, no, we've already released these.
Yeah.
So we're just going to fill up this whole album, you know, and you know, we even recorded like more songs than would fit. So like in the British version of it, they put a different song as the lead song on side 2.
Right.
For instance. And so that's like, you know, your first album, you're just like, you know, you're just gunning for it. Our second album is, I don't know, I guess in some ways like the classic sophomore album. It was a little slower and harder to come together, and you know, the stuff was thought through a lot more, and then also the recording process was too. But I mean, we barely filled up that album, and it had like 4 songs that had already been released as
Right.
singles
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
So we kind of went
kind of
the completely opposite way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, I remember the process of Gyrate being more direct,
Yeah.
and that we just played them, And, the vocal booth had a lot of bleed, but I still had to sing along with them.
Yeah.
Then I'd have to come back and redo the vocals.
Right.
But the very few overdubs, and in those days, if you made a mistake, it was really difficult to do what was called punching in.
Right.
They'd have to, the tape, find out where it was, and then you'd have to jump in and do it. So you did there wasn't as much studio trickery in those days, although they did do some things.
Yeah.
Very little overdubs. And I think, looking at the track sheets, there are 2 and 3, tracks that weren't even used on every song. We didn't even fill up 16 tracks.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. But we started the process of recording Chomp at, was it Christian Broadcast Studio? And at some point, we'd gone to New York, and I remember Randy saying, I wish we had a real producer.
Right.
Now, Bruce Baxter was great. He was really good at recording us, but he didn't give us a whole lot of direction. So at that point, I think maybe it was Randy that went and talked to Danny and said, "Sir," and so he thought of Chris Thamey, and then Chris brought in Gene Holder to be the engineer, who are both in the DBs, and they said, let's go up to Mitch's drive-in studio.
Yeah.
So we went from this really big, almost state-of-the-art studio to recording in a garage.
Yeah.
But with somebody who had a lot more wizardry going. Like he had brought in, it's the first time I'd ever heard of a noise gate, and so the drums would trigger additional sounds, and we added some keyboard parts in there, and he was using really vocal recording things. Like he used 2 mics to record me, one that was closer and one that was further away, or in one case it was 2 different kinds. I think it was a 58 and a 57 that were taped together.
Yeah.
And that studio, I just remember it was a garage. It was so cold back there. That winter was so cold.
Yeah.
There's a photo of us in this book that we're standing out in the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it turned out really well, even though that board was on its last legs. There were a few things I wanted to do. Let's make the vocals kind of slowly fade out, but they would just reach this point where they would be fading and then go, take a nosedive.
Yeah.
So, back then, many different hands would be manning knobs because they didn't have the automation.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. What can y'all tell me a little bit about y'all's songwriting methods? I mean, I always assumed that PYLON was the kind of band where it's the 4 of y'all in a room kind of coming up with the ideas and the songs together. Was that the case, or were there certain songs that somebody came in with a more fully formed idea? Or
no, it was the former.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'd almost go so far as to say that, I mean, maybe with Randy like this much, but that Randy or I would sit at home and come up with something and go oh yeah. I'll bring this into the next practice set. I mean, it just didn't work that way at all.
Yeah.
Almost every part of every PYLON song, especially once all 4 of us were in the band, because there was some stuff that predated Curtis and then predated Vanessa, but in terms of riffs and this and that. But especially by the time all 4 of us were there, I mean, everything kind of happened as 4 people together in the room at the same time.
Yeah.
And then, in some cases, Vanessa would maybe go home with the tape or whatever and work on lyrics, a little bit to write.
Right.
But then when it came time to, kind of deploy or perform again, I mean, it was usually done all together.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. I mean, we didn't have a songwriter in the group, so to speak, and at the beginning we agreed that all 4 band members would be credited for the creation of all aspects of all of the songs, no matter no matter who actually did it.
Well, the whole package. I mean, now the secret's out. Michael did most of the graphics and everything, but back then it was all produced by PYLON. It was like we were a little workshop.
Yeah, and so like the song credits and everything are just like equally applied for everybody, and I mean that's the only way it really could have ever been, because that's largely almost exactly the way it came together, except for, I mean, we didn't work as a team of 4 people did not write the lyrics, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
But then again, 4 people didn't contribute to the arrangement of the bass lines, and 4 people didn't, so we just did it all together, and more or less, did really do it all together.
Yeah.
But they all came about in a different way. I can talk about 2 songs in particular. One of them is Kay. We'd written this song, Kay. And the lyrics came about. Michael and I actually said, well, let's get together and write some lyrics. And so one of the things we did was sit there and play Scrabble. And then we took the words, and each of us took every other word and would make a line that word ended with, So we were like, okay, this is good, and we practiced it, and then we played it at the I&I, or B&L Warehouse, whichever one it was at the time.
Same building.
Yeah, and we hadn't practiced twice totally, and we did that all the time. And so we went out and played it, but it completely crashed and burned. We were so embarrassed because people came in at the wrong time, and some things were forgotten, and people were off from each other, and we're like, one of our friends, was it John C. Wright or Sam? One of them came up to us after the show, and they were like, that new song, and I think Curtis or Michael said, yeah, we know, it really, we really, it kind of bombed, didn't it? Oh, no. He said, that's the best thing you've ever done. And we were like, what, really? Because it completely fell apart.
Right.
So we took that tape and listened to it and went, holy, you know what?
Yeah.
This is pretty good. And we were kind of like full of ourselves enough that we like took the direction to go for the song. So we took that tape. It took us a month to learn all of those mistakes.
Yeah.
and then it ends up being like the lead song on the album.
Yeah.
So good.
Sometimes the happy accidents are the best parts. Let's see, what else was I going to ask you? A little bit about the PYLON Reenactment Society. I mean, for those of y'all who aren't familiar, that's Vanessa has been playing PYLON songs with some other local Athens musicians here in town for the past couple years, and I think it's a cool way of kind of keeping the songs fresh. Plus, y'all have done a single of your original stuff that's really cool too. And can you tell us how you started that, and like, Michael, what were your thoughts on that? Were you cool with that, or did you think it was weird? Or
well, it's weird to hear PYLON, sound music coming off a live stage.
Yeah.
When I'm not on the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But y'all did something like that. There was another PYLON tribute.
Weather Radio.
You were in that.
Well, no, that was Aaron, our Elf Power's former drummer, Aaron Wagelin. He put together a PYLON cover band. I think it was called Recent Title, maybe.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I remember some of y'all were at that show here when they played here, and y'all were like super impressed that like.
Okay, so wait, who was playing bass? Was Brian playing bass? Is that not?
Possibly. I honestly I can't remember. I can't remember.
So it was hilarious because I was like standing out here in the ring. Curtis and I were here, and I was standing there next to Mike Mills, and who's a bass player,
right.
In REM, and so Brian was up there like playing like my bass lines, but like playing them like this, and I said something like, "Oh my God, making it look so complicated," and because that's not the way I played it, He accessed like the same notes, but like through different means.
Yeah.
And so like Mills like goes like, yeah, hasn't he ever heard of like open string? You know, this is just like total like bass player jab at me, you know, because
well, Mills
well
came up to
well
me
deserved.
that night. He said they're pretty good. What do you think, Vanessa? And he said, you know, they'll have it if I see him walk over and look at his watch.
Oh, right.
Because he used to do that sometimes.
Right. Anyway, so it is a trip to hear your songs, you know, by a live band when you're, you know.
Yeah.
Like that had never occurred to me. Like when that cover band came together. Now Vanessa's the gestation of the PYLON Reenactment Society is much different and a little bit more, you know, logical.
Yeah.
But just out of the blue, when those guys like wanted to do that, and the reason that we heard from them is like A, they wanted to know what we mean, and then B, asked would I help do the design for the poster.
Yeah.
And then it was a one-off thing, and you know I never saw it coming, and it was great, and they never did it again. And in a way, it contributed. Randy wasn't interested in being there at that time, but later,
it was one of the things that kind of renewed interest locally in our music.
Well, and you know, somebody you know brought that to him, and he heard it, and he was like, oh wow, and it kind of like woke him up again to the idea of asking us if we wanted to do PYLON. But I'll let you explain what you're doing with the Reenactment Society.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really have any plans to do this, you know, but a few years back, there's a group called Art Rocks Athens who put together some events that were some that had to do with the connection between the art and music scene between 1975 and 1985. And Jason Neesmith, who I played with on Supercluster, was like, Vanessa, would you consider playing? Would you consider singing something? And, you know, I thought about it a long time, but then I was like, you know, I'd really like to do some PYLON material because that's where we came from. We came from that art and that music scene, and I thought that PYLON should be represented. Well, we did maybe 15 minutes, and Michael came out and did one song, and then we did a side effects song too, when Paul Bouchard played drums.
Yeah.
But he was calling us the PYLON Resurrection Society. You know, and it's like, but people just went bananas. They were just just kind of put that idea on the shelf. It's like, wow, it's like that one-off thing you're talking about. It was fun to do.
Yeah.
But then the next year, they had another exhibit that was centered more around the film and photography aspect of that period. And I think somebody dropped off the show, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who it was. It might have been Love Tractor. I don't know. But they had Fred Schneider solo. And Jason was like, would you consider doing it again, and we'll give you more time. But there's a problem. The band that we had before was basically his band Casper and the Cookies, but Gregory Sanders, the drummer, had just injured his shoulder and had rotator cuff problems. And he said, we got to find a drummer. I was like, oh, you know, that's kind of hard, you know.
Yeah.
There's like one good drummer to every good 8 or 9 guitarists.
Right.
You know, that's just about the formula.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. So a few days later, it was AthFest. I was downtown, and We Love Tractor, a Love Tractor spinoff band, was playing right out here in the street outside the 40 Watt. And I'd introduced them. And then Curtis was there because I think he was going to come up and, you know, hit a tambourine or something with them that invited him. And I'm standing next to him. And I go, Curtis, would you consider playing with us at this event, you know, in a few weeks? He's like, no, I can't. I've got this film, TV job. I'm going to be out of town. I don't know when I'm coming back. And I was like, well, who do you recommend? Do you know any drummers who might want to do it? Because, you know, I really respect his opinion about drummers. And he looked up at the stage at We Love Tractor, and he said, get that guy right there. And I was like, well, who is that? and it turned out to be Joe Rowe. A few nights later, I'd gotten together with Jason and Kay to practice through a few of these songs, you know, just us. And I was about to tell him, what did he think about this drummer? And Jason went, I found a drummer. And I was like, okay, I'll just keep it quiet since he found one. Right. I said, well, who is it? And he said, Joe Rowe.
That's good.
He was a drummer at one point with Casper and the Cookies. Right. And, you know, he was mainly known as the drummer for the Glens.
Yeah.
So we were real lucky to have him. And then I brought in Damon, because we were going to do some songs from Chomp, and some of those had some keyboard. And he's a really great pianist and an old friend of mine. And so, you know, we played, and people just went crazy. And I look, and here's Victoria right in front of me in the first song. And, you know, that's my younger daughter, and I put her in the T-shirt booth, and I thought, oh, she maybe needs change. And I looked down at her, and I was like, Victoria, what? She said, oh, we sold out of T-shirts during the first song.
Yeah. That's cool.
So then Dressy Bessie heard about it and asked us to go out, and I had some time. I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. They're going to pay us for it. And then after that, we just started getting offers to go here and there. And last year, we played at Primavera.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, tell us.
And
so
people have heard about PYLON all over the place.
Yeah.
I met people from Iceland and Germany and Italy and, of course, Spain.
Yeah.
You know? They were excited.
Did PYLON ever tour internationally when y'all?
Well, I mean, we did go to Canada.
Yeah.
And our first album was kind of like co-released or whatever, you know, in the U.S. and then in the UK with Armageddon Records. And so Armageddon, you know, might have had higher ambitions for this album than what it came to, I don't know. But they put together the money to bring PYLON over to England and put together a tour that was very compact. We did for most of it in one apartment that they had rented, and I think we were scheduled, you know, some of them had to be canceled, but scheduled for around 18 shows or something like that in like a 3-week, you know, a little over 3 weeks, so it was a real tight schedule. And so that was our only overseas trip, you know. But you know, later on when all you guys were going over to Europe all the time, I mean, that just wasn't happening during our era. I mean, just for us to even be able to go over there to England was pretty special.
Well, you guys paved the way.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, you know, it was just like we had the advantage of like our band came along when they were just so there wasn't that much of the same kind of thing going on.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so the amount of attention that we got, it was a lot, but I think it was like you know, partly just in proportion to how many bands there were to even talk about or you know, give promotion to. And you know, so in a way, like PYLON being over in England, it wasn't a big deal in England, but they had so much music press over there and stuff like that, so you know, it got covered good enough.
Yeah,
we got plenty of press and good enough turnout.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you get the UK inside the state of Georgia, so we returned to the apartment in London most nights. Okay. And we had a lorry with 2 guys that looked like they were in Metallica or whatever, or Motorhead, running the sound and lights. And we had a tour manager. He drove us around in an estate wagon, which was like a really small station wagon. And it turned out, you know, British road managers are the best. He had like, I think right before us, he'd been out with Barry Manilow.
Yeah, we were crammed into a fairly small car to go to these gigs, you know, and you know, we had like the band and Paul Butcher, right? Wasn't he with us?
Yeah, he was with us. He ran
and then we had like our guitars in the back, and so we were going trying to get to Blackpool and got in a car wreck along the way, you know, just trying to get out of London. And the car, you know, radiator was smashed or whatever. And take your guitars and your luggage, you know, and
There's the train
go to the
station
train
right
station
there.
and go down to, get off in Blackpool, and I'll call the people and they'll come pick you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of
We
fun.
got to hang out with Hugo from Gang of Four, stayed with him at his house. So.
Yeah. Cool.
Except John Lennon died, and that was very sad.
Oh, wow, while y'all were,
That was
were in
December
England?
1980.
Wow, yeah,
Terrible.
yeah. What was it like being in England when that happened? I mean, I'm sure it
Well,
was,
all of a sudden it wasn't very popular to be an American.
Right.
People had questions like, why do you people allow just anybody to have a gun?
yeah,
I mean, over there the policemen didn't even carry guns.
Right.
They just had the bobbies had billy clubs, and
Right.
they just couldn't understand. It was like the nation
yeah,
to them, and it really was.
yeah,
It was not very popular all of a sudden, but fortunately when we played London again, like about a week later, the Soft Boys had agreed to play with
Yeah.
us, so some people came to see us just because of them.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. They're one of my favorites too. Well, I understand that we lost audio at the very beginning, so let me just reiterate a couple things that I had said that may not have come through. First of all, if any of y'all online have any questions that you want to submit, we've got a few more minutes here, so if anybody has any questions, send them on through. And I was also going to say that there is a virtual tip jar, so any money that you donate will be given to the 40 Watt employees here, who there haven't been shows in so long that they could really use that. So if you're feeling generous, that would be awesome. And thanks so much to the 40 Watt for letting us do this here. I mean, this has just been really, really cool to get to do this and to get to see y'all. And yeah, thanks to Aquarium Drunkard for hosting this. And so
And InLive for powering it.
and
Thank you,
InLive for powering it as well. Yeah, so thanks everybody. So maybe I'll give it a minute to see if any questions from the internet comes through. But one of your friends, Vanessa, asked, why isn't Curtis Crow your drummer here tonight?
Michael, do you want to answer that?
Curtis is such a good sport. He has no reason to not want to be here.
Yeah.
He's a busy guy. I
Yeah.
mean, he works in the film industry. I mean, he's glad. I'm sure he's very happy to be back to working, because there was a period where they weren't even working.
Yeah.
He's working really a lot and really hard, and mostly in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So he and his wife live on the outskirts of Athens, but they actually also own a house that they use as a for Atlanta time and stuff
Okay.
like that. So it's not practical for Curtis to do all of the publicity
Yeah.
and stuff like that we're doing for this box set.
Yeah.
And by his own admission, he hasn't been totally involved in the gestation of this, but he's been a huge supporter of it. He's as amazed as anybody, maybe more than anybody, that there's this much interest in PYLON. And he's grateful for it, and he's an enormous fan of that New West Records.
And he signed the book
Jason
with
has
us,
done.
Yeah.
his one day off
Yeah.
that he had this last
Yeah.
couple of months, because
Yeah.
he's working 2 projects
Yeah.
at once, is we signed 1,500 books
Wow.
for the box set, and it took, Michael said, 9.5 hours.
Wow.
Oh, we got a question.
Okay. Okay, here's a question from Tom Hall online, and Tom says, I would like to hear from Vanessa about how her feelings of being out in front of the band have changed through the years. She is such a wonderful singer, front person. I'm wondering how she sees her own development from the earliest days to now.
That's a good question, because when I started, I didn't really have singing experience in front of a band. I
Right.
had some in high school, but I was never a soloist.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like being like a regular singer in a way, and that this was always thought of as more as an art project. So the earliest lyrics were provided to me by Michael, and when he wrote them, to me it did look like he necessarily thought about how they would go along with the music.
Yeah.
And so I had to make them fit, so I was just really concentrating, trying to get it out there, and a lot of screaming was involved because
Yeah.
I couldn't hear myself very well.
Yeah.
But as time went on, I got over a lot, not all of my shyness, but some of my shyness.
Yeah.
And recently I've got over quite a bit of my shyness.
Yeah.
But I've learned how to project, and to me, what really makes a show to me is when I feel like I'm one with the audience, and
Yeah.
that doesn't happen every time.
Yeah.
They call it being in the zone nowadays. I didn't know what that was
Right.
back then, but it's kind of an addictive thing when
Yeah.
you're like in front of like this big machine that our band was, all that music, and we're together and we're dancing, and you see out there everybody else is dancing too, and you just all experiencing the same thing at once.
Yeah.
It I really did grow a lot. I mean, I don't think I have much of a range, but I was able to learn, and now I think I'm a better singer. I don't know if I'm a better human, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, Vanessa's contribution was always highly regarded, as just performance and as a presence. And for her, there's an article Jones is working on, and he has some really cool ways of phrasing it. So
Yeah.
I can't quote him right now because I don't remember, but
Yeah.
it's some great stuff from the very beginning.
Yeah.
and I always felt a lot of support from the guys in the band. Coming through the art school, there wasn't like some of the sexism that
Yeah.
you see. I felt like I was just another person,
Yeah.
another human being.
That's great.
Yeah.
Here's one more question from online from Brandy Fisher. Have you given any thought as to making and selling a DVD of performances? Fans such as myself would eat them up.
Oh, I don't think I think at one point we were talking about making a movie or video.
Backtrack. Historically, like when our band existed, it wasn't really common to be able to record it.
Yeah.
So the technology that we're all so comfortable with, and maybe it would expect at this point of having video or recordings of performances, that just wasn't a thing back then. And so there aren't that many bands that had a whole lot of really good tapes, of them. And we really don't. And the ones that exist, we don't have the rights to them.
Right.
And they're
There was
very early from Hurrah, and that's almost it. I mean, there's very little that exists.
Right.
So from the music of PYLON, from the era that this box is celebrating, at 1979 to 1983, there's not much to show aside from the Hurrah stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In Athens, Georgia, Inside
And Athens,
Out.
Georgia, Inside Out, which is only like a handful of songs. So,
Right.
I would just say, like, to somebody.
The Athens movie is what?
Athens movie.
Yeah, the one that never got released, that they used the audio for PYLON Live.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking
but
of.
so in all honesty, you just have to do like what we did, like listen to records and just imagine the bands, or maybe see them live. But unfortunately, we don't really have like a recording that's going to change your probably change your view of PYLON that much. Although I admit that, looking at the Hurrah video, and there's at least one of them might be still on YouTube.
Yeah.
Watching Vanessa in that era is really fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely recommended, but you might, one song might be all you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and those girls, the nightclubbing girls, have something. It looks good. I'm not real super happy with the audio quality, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's very honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. They used to come in and hide the cameras under their trench coats
right.
or whatever.
Yeah. Here's another question from the internet. Jamie Toohill asks, were there any particular cities or music venues outside of Georgia where PYLON was particularly well received? I'm guessing New York City would be one of them. Any others?
Oh, hell yeah. We had so many cities that loved PYLON, and then we had some other cities that it was just like playing, and it was fine, no complaints. Okay, so from my memory, and Vanessa, help me out, but okay.
Boston.
It's good.
San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
Atlanta.
Of course.
Oh, that's in Georgia. Whoops.
And Maxwell's in Hoboken, always from the very get-go, was like being at home. I mean, oh my God, that was like the homiest and just most robust, super energy.
Yeah.
And then there was some, New York, everywhere in New York was always good and all that, but
DC.
And
930
DC was
Club.
really good.
Yeah.
But there were some places that were a little bit cool, to us, like LA or
it was okay in LA. LA's like flipped though.
I know. It's flipped because of the way things are there now, but
time we played in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
The opening band took the entire audience with them. They went, okay, the party's at our house now. Everybody left except for two people. There was two ladies. One of them was in a wheelchair. We're playing for them.
Couldn't leave, yeah.
And the lady in the wheelchair, I can't remember her name, but we went and talked to them both, and it turned out she'd broken her spine and been at Spinal Shepherd Center, and flat on her tummy or on her back for 6 months there, and they tuned like the college radio into her for her because she was younger.
Right.
And she became a PYLON fan.
Cool.
Because of WRES and WREK.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I went back to the hotel, and she took the guys out in her old convertible all over Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So we did the show for her.
Yeah. That's
it was cool.
Yeah.
Even though there were two people. Uh-oh, you stole his...
Okay, one or two more questions, I think, from the internet. One of which was, let's see. Do you still catch much live music? Like, do you guys still go out? I mean, pre-pandemic, I'm assuming they're saying.
You mean now?
Well, yeah, I'm assuming they're meaning up until the pandemic. Did you guys? I mean, I can answer that because I see y'all out at shows all the time, so I would say yes. Y'all have always been big supporters of the Athens music scene. But don't let me answer for you. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah. We go out, and I'd love to see younger bands. I hear about a younger band. Those go out when my girls were growing up.
Yeah.
But when my daughter Hannah got in high school, her and her friend Naomi, they were both Green Party members.
Right.
Clark County, in high school. And Naomi and Hannah would share mixtapes, and that's where I first heard bands from the Elephant Six Collective.
Yeah.
And became interested in what was going on. I was like, this is pretty cool sounding stuff.
Yeah. That's cool.
How about you, Michael? You're more into the DJ scene, I know, forever.
No, I don't really go out that much, but I would like to.
Yeah.
I mean, now that we can't, so.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, here's one more from Philip Shelley. Philip asks, this might be sad, but do you feel Randy's presence when you immerse yourselves in projects like the box set? Does it bring back all kinds of memories?
Yeah, I mean, this box set, like for instance, like when we were discussing how we were going to sign all of the books, I mean, part of me was saying, but wait, is that right? Because Randy's not signing them.
Right.
Because every part of everything, you know, in PYLON, because like when Randy passed away, I mean, that was like the clean end of like when PYLON existed.
Yeah.
So this period here, of course, you know, Randy was as involved or more. We were all involved equally, and so there's a desire to make sure that Randy's that we approach the project trying to account for, like, well, if Randy was involved, you know, is his voice being brought into it, like whatever that might have been, you know, because we don't exactly know, or you know, so we can approximate it, you know, by going out of our way to remember Randy's contribution and stuff like that, since you don't really have him here on the scene.
Yeah.
And one of the things I enjoy about being able to work on the design for this book is like the first 16 pages. I just put together. I just had like a clean slate to put together, kind of a visual introduction to PYLON, you know, sort of from my perspective, because Randy and I were technically the founding two people.
Pass me the book.
And
I'll open it.
Okay.
so it kind of starts out with like pictures of like me and Randy, like before there was any playing music, and then Curtis and Vanessa, and it's like me and Randy, like, you know, when we were actually playing music, but it's just the two of us and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it shows some of our art, the art by all four of us, because all four of us were in art school. And then it gets to this like a picture of Randy, a Polaroid that I took of him, and then a photograph of a white pylon. And so when he passed away, I just happened upon finding out that this white pylon at Granger, and bought it because it was just like my idea is that would be like the Randy tribute, that Randy's like not here, but this white pylon to sort of represent him. So
Yeah.
we you know, we definitely have included him in the book. There's a final photograph in the book is him throwing a pylon in the sky, into the air, that I took.
Yeah.
And in the in all of the music parts, I know that Jason Neesmith and Vanessa had Randy in mind, and his contribution sonically to the band, and all these great photos. His kids were, you know, helped us out by loaning his guitars and his jacket. You know, he had a jacket, I had a jacket, that kind of thing. So I do think that Randy's present throughout. You know, this his art and his painting that's in there, this kind of dinosaur design. So yeah, I think we did Randy right on this, and as it should be, because it was his idea to start the band. He had to talk me into the idea of even starting up.
Yeah.
As two people. So.
And here's Michael's face. It's almost life size.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I hope that people, you know, when they engage this project, will be as aware of Randy as they are of me and Vanessa and Curtis.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think we have one more question from Brady Brock from New West Records, and he.
All right, Brady.
Brady.
What's up in Nashville? It's an hour earlier up there.
Yeah, he's asking, have y'all seen the exhibit at the UGA Special Collections Library? And
I'm so embarrassed.
No, not yet.
Okay.
And I haven't seen the pylon on the Athens Walk of Fame
my
yet
gosh.
either, because
Yeah.
I've been working a lot.
Yeah.
And I haven't. This is practically the first time I've been downtown in months.
Same here.
So I'm going to walk up there and look at it.
Okay, well, so the small exhibition of Pylon Ephemera up at the University of Georgia Special Collections Library, just a few blocks from here, like right practically near downtown on Hull Street, has all the stuff that Vanessa and I donated. I mean, and maybe some of the stuff they had left over from the Georgia Music Hall of Fame.
Right.
And no, I haven't been by there to see it yet, but it's going to be up until like I think early December.
Yeah.
No, May.
May.
They extended it through
Yeah.
May.
Okay, good.
So I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Social distancing.
Yeah.
And we had an unreal amount of ephemera to wade through that we curated down to this book. Some of it, there are pictures by Jason Thrasher, some of the ephemera that's in there. And we, I went through and made sure it was all in good shape, and we donated it. It was, I don't know how much.
Boxes and trunk load.
Yeah.
But then this Athens Music Walk of Fame is just it's just amazing to me that at one point we were just art students in a band, and then our band is one of 10 of the plaques that are acknowledging contributions to the Athens music scene in different ways, and it's right up the street and a little bit uphill from the Morton Theater. Right out front here, you basically have to walk on top of the one that says Vic Chestnut to come into the 40 Watt Club. So I'm extremely honored to have that here, and the good thing about those 10 plaques are just the beginning of a project that's going to be going on. There's going to be additional ones added at a certain rate per year is yet to be determined, but there'll be 20 or 30 of them in just a number of years. In the same 8-block area. So.
Yeah. That I have they're going to have an app that you go around and it'll play music from the band, and
oh, cool.
You can read about the history and how they're connected to Athens.
Cool. That's a cool idea.
They do something like that at Beale Street. So.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we're out of time, but man, thank you guys so much for talking about this. And
can we just say, Brady, thank you for your question.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
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 Thanks for all of y'all.
Thank you, and live. And everybody, don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses and the sound people that work at this club.
Yeah.
We support Neva. We know how hard it is to get by in the best of times.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.